Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, King Dhritarashtra became blind under the influence of impious desires to nourish his dishonest sons, and thus he set fire to the lacquer house to burn his fatherless nephews, the Pandavas. Purport. Dhritarashtra is blind from birth, but his blindness in committing impious activities to support his dishonest sons was a greater blindness than his physical lack of eyesight. The physical lack of sight does not bar one from spiritual progress, but when one is blind spiritually, even though physically fit, that blindness is dangerously detrimental to the progressive path of human life. Namo Vishnu Vidaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutaya Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shnivadi Paskirtyade Satarane. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks a lot about blindness, spiritual blindness specifically. Because, especially in modern society, people are proud of their so-called knowledge, but actually their so-called knowledge, technological advancement, has led them to the darkest regions of existence. Therefore, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes them as asuras, where he says that pravitim cha nivritim cha jana navidur asura nisocham napichacharo nisatyam teshu vidite. Those who are asuras, they don't know what's to be done, and that's what's not to be done. Neither cleanliness, nor truthfulness, nor proper behavior is found in them. They say, asatyam apratishtam te jagarahora nishwaram aparashparam sambudyam kimanya kama haitukam. They say, the asuras, in other words, 99.9% of the people that we have to deal with, and probably a good percentage of our consciousness, says the same thing. They say that this world is unreal. It came out of nothing. After all, if the world came out of nothing, then how real could it be? If you ask someone who your father was and your mother, and they said they were nothing, then what are you? Because intuitively we don't accept this, but that's the predominant philosophy, worldview, scientific worldview of mine in the modern world, that everything came out of nothing. So what does that make us? It makes us nothing. And that's the way people treat each other, as if they were nothing. They say the world is unreal, has no foundation, didn't come out of anything. No God in control. Even the Mayavadis, they proclaim that actually Narayana Para, that Narayana is above the material creation. But they don't actually give very much credit to Narayan, because they believe that Narayan actually came out of nothing also, out of illusion. So he's just a bit better version of illusion than everything else. But something that has more zeros, 0, 0, 0, a lot more zeros than everything else, still adds up to 0. So they also believe that Narayan is actually 0, although he created all the other zeros. Jagadahornishwaram, there's no controller. The planets move in their orbits exactly in time. It's just by accident. Everything is an accident. Anything that works in the material world, that fire digestion, planets moving their orbits, we're receiving remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. It's all just accidental. Aparash param sambudyam kimanya kama haitukam. But there is something that dominates the material world, kama, lust. That's really what inspires everyone, is lust. And sometimes it turns into greed and anger, but anyhow, these are all just manifestations of reality. So anyone who has this worldview, which is practically everyone in the world, what is their result? Etam drishtim avashtavya nashtatmana nabuddhaya pravaya shaye jagata. Etam drishtim avashtavya nashtatmana nabuddhaya pravaya yugra karmana shaye jagato hita. Following these conclusions and loss of their own self, the demoniac, they create horrible, unbeneficial work which is meant to destroy the world. So anyone who doesn't know these things, anyone who doesn't know the existence of God, who actually God is, not their imagined God, but who actually is God, the source of the proprietor, the enjoyer, and the friend of everyone, anyone who doesn't know these three things, who God actually is, then they're lost to themselves. Etam drishtim avashtavya. They're blind, spiritually blind. And they're lost to themselves. If we don't know who God is, we won't know who we are. And if we don't know who God is, who we are, we won't really even know even what this material nature is. We can't have knowledge without Krishna. It's not possible. Because Krishna is the source of everything, including knowledge. But they've taken Krishna away from the equation, they've lost the vision, and therefore everything they do is striving in the wrong direction. They say they're going to improve the world with their philosophy, with their sociology, with their medicine, with everything. They say they want to improve the material world, even they want to improve their own sense gratification. But actually they're simply making destruction. They've taken Dharma away from the equation, the laws of God, but they want so-called economic development to enjoy sense gratification. So their so-called economic development, building big cities, digging into the earth to get oil, technological advancement, is actually not even helping anyone's sense gratification. Sense gratification means how to eat, how to sleep, how to have sex, and how to defend themselves. But they've even lost that knowledge. They're working so hard, digging into the earth to get the oil, so they can have the car, so they can drive to the grocery store. They're building big skyscrapers and then breaking them down just to make a point how powerful they are. But the person who's building the skyscraper, he's laboring so hard, people are collecting so much money, and all it's meant for is just so people can eat, sleep, mate, and defend. That's all they're doing in the skyscrapers for the most part. There's nothing else. Whether you eat, sleep, mate, and defend on the 100th floor of a skyscraper, or you do it in a hut in India, it's basically the same thing. It's not, if I'm eating, sleeping, mating, and defending on the 100th floor of a skyscraper, that doesn't make it more glorious than if I'm doing the same thing in a hut in India. So they've deluded themselves. They've lost their vision. They've lost whatever little intelligence they had. They've even lost that. And therefore, Vidura will come eventually and try to give Dhritarashtra some vision, some spiritual vision. So that's what Bhagavad Gita is about, trying to give us some spiritual vision, trying to put Krishna in the center. As it says, even if we can't see Krishna, then at least we should see with some spiritual knowledge. Just like right now we can't see the sun, but we know that the sun is there because the sunlight is coming through. So even if we don't directly see Krishna, when we see his energies, how they're working under his control, then we assume that there is a person who's controlling it. We may not see the person in the powerhouse who's pulling the switches so that we have electricity in the room right now. But we assume there's such a person. that the switches are not pulling themselves, and therefore the light's coming. We know that there's a person behind it. If a child sees a car going down the street, he thinks that it's amazing that this vehicle is going by itself. He doesn't see the driver within it, and therefore he assumes that there is no driver. But a more intelligent person than a child, he understands that there's a driver, either remotely driving the car or personally in the car driving it. So those who see the material existence, any part of it, and without Krishna driving it, they're simply like children. Although they may give each other awards for their great geniuses, but actually they're, according to Srimad Bhagavatam, Yasyatma buddhi kunape tritaduke sudi kalatradi shubhoma ijadi yatirtha buddhe sahale nakari chish ganesh vavageshu saeva gokara. Anyone who has this mentality, who believes that their body is, they themselves are a body made out of the three elements, kapha, vata, pitta, and kapha, who don't understand the value of going to a holy place of pilgrimage and to hear saintly persons, who believe that their land of birth is worshipable and identify with it, they're on the same level as the cow or the ass. Therefore, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna even says, Ukramantam sitim vapi bhunjana vagunanvita vimudonana pashanti pashanti jnana chakshusha. The foolish. And who are the foolish? Anyone here know any foolish people? Who are the foolish? The foolish. They cannot understand how the living entity quits his body. So ask anyone, even ask some devotees, how does the living entity quit his body? Or what kind of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature? How many of us actually know what kind of body we're even experiencing under the modes of material nature? What are sattva, rajas, and tamas, what the combinations are that we're presently experiencing? Anyone here know that? So, vimudo nanapashanti. So the foolish, they can't understand these things. So we may take great pride in our technological advancement. We have watches, we have computers, we have cars, and we have airplanes, but we're just fools driving around in ignorance. Because we don't even know who we are. We don't even know what we're in, what kind of body it is. We don't know how the modes of material nature are working. We don't know where we're going next. We don't know why we're going to a next place. Pashanti jnana chakshusha. But those who have knowledge can see with knowledge, they can actually see. Without this jnana chakshush, then we're completely blind. With jnana chakshus, at least we can see with spectacles on. Kshetra kshetragam evam antara jnana chakshusha bhuta prakriti moksham cha yevidu yadite param. Kshetra, kshetragaya. So, kshetra means this body that we're in. Kshetragaya, the soul and the super soul who are aware of the body. Kshetra, kshetragaya jnanam evam antara jnana chakshusha. Antara jnana chakshusha. So, one who can see one who understands the field of activity and the knower of the field with knowledge, actually knows these things. Bhuta, the living entity, prakriti, the material nature, mokshamcha, then the living entity can actually get free from his material entanglement. Generally speaking, we don't take this material entanglement very seriously. Even devotees, because of the nature of the illusory energy, we're dull. It's like we're anesthetized. We're under an operation till nature is operating on us, and we're all anesthetized. We're under anesthesia. And therefore we don't take the fact that we have to leave this body shortly, we don't take it very seriously. what to speak of an ordinary person? They think, oh, death, it's inevitable. So in the meantime, eat, sleep, and be merry, because tomorrow we die. They don't take seriously death. They just try to put death off. But they don't even know how to prolong life. They don't know even what health is. They don't know what disease is. They become more and more ignorant in every aspect of life. Therefore, they don't have any plans to get free from birth, death, old age, and disease. They think that's just imagination. They're making plans to stay here as long as possible and enjoy their senses up to the last moment in life. As the sage, or as the minister was telling the king, when he was seeing one great saintly person blessing people. So he was blessing one prince that, may you live forever. And the saintly person blessed another brahmachari, may you die immediately. And he blessed a brahmachari, may you not live and may you not die. And he blessed the devotee, may you, whether you die or live, it makes no difference. So the king was asking, why is a saintly person giving all these different blessings to these different people? So he explained that the prince, he's enjoying his senses, so he seems to be happy now, but then after he dies, he's going to go to hell, so better he lives forever. The brahmachari, he's going through so much austerity, his destination is to go to the heavenly planets or maybe to the spiritual world. So he's already got enough pious credits to do one or the other. So let him die immediately and end his suffering of austerity. Let him go to the spiritual world or the heavenly planets. And for the butcher, his life is horrible. He's suffering he's hearing the screams of the animals that he's killing. He's covered with blood. So he shouldn't live. But when he dies, he's going to hell and suffer even more. So he shouldn't die and he shouldn't live. And for the devotee, he's always chanting Hare Krishna, always in pure consciousness of Krishna. Therefore, he's always in the spiritual world. Whether he's living and after he dies, he'll go back to the spiritual world also. So whether he lives or dies, it makes no difference. But people aren't concerned about death. They're concerned, they want to avoid it, or they want to imagine that they're not going to die. As Dhritarashtra's, he's living in Dwapara Yuga, he should know the law of karma at least, and reincarnation. And yet, being blinded by his material desires, even that knowledge has been taken away. So we have to also be careful that we don't have blind spots in our knowledge. Yes, we theoretically accept Krishna as God, but when he speaks in Bhagavad Gita, some of it we think, well, I can't really accept it. It's just too much of an exaggeration. That Krishna knows how this material nature is working. He says, Bhumir apanulo vayu kamano buddha evacha. He makes such a simplistic understanding of material nature, and then he says he's going to tell us everything in Bhagavad Gita about the material nature. And he says it's a matter of earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. How simplistic. He's supposed to be God. He doesn't know the 108 table of elements that the scientists have created. They've advanced way beyond Krishna's simplistic understanding of the universe. And then Krishna talks about the soul and the super soul. How quaint. And that's supposed to be everything. So because we don't understand these things in depth, how profound they are, therefore we take it as very simplistic. Although, as Prabhupada will go on, there's more elaborate details within the Srimad Bhagavatam and other literature, but that's sufficient, because that's what material nature is a combination of solid elements, cohesive elements, transformative elements, moving elements, and space, where everything fits in, plus the mind, intelligence, and false ego. So Krishna is trying to make things simple for us, and we're trying to make things simple, complicated for us. If we accept Krishna, things become simple, and if we reject Krishna, then simply our lives will become more and more complicated in the name of so-called advancement. Then even the simple things like we're not this body, as Prabhupada said, it will take 500 years to understand. The existence of God will take another 500 years. If we don't want to make things simple, then Maya will help us make everything so complicated that we won't be able to understand anything properly. And we'll be convinced we understand everything when we actually understand absolutely nothing properly. And we'll be satisfied with these toys that we're given to play around with. So we can get a computer and play video games all day long and think that we're killing things or we're building things or we're doing things in the material energy on a computer game that we can't do in reality. And we think we're actually accomplishing something rather than just wasting our time in the material energy. So, if we want to stay blind, then Maya will encourage us. You're doing great. You're the greatest of all the blind people. You deserve a reward. We'll give you a PhD, an MD, whatever we'll give you. And you can declare yourself as the best of everyone who's blind. But we don't say blind. You're the most knowledgeable. You're the most exalted. You're the most advanced. That we have the greatest civilization that ever existed. And therefore we become expert at killing children, killing animals, killing each other. We're so advanced. We can't wait till people die. We're envious. Anything moves, we try and step on it. Why should you live? I'm God. So that's all people become, that's all the real advancements happen in the real sense. People's ego is expanded, false ego is expanded, and their real ego has become covered by it. Therefore, this chapter will tell us about Dhritarashtra, who's blind, but luckily he had some good association in the form of his brother, and therefore he was saved. And the question is, he accepted his brother and accepted the instructions and did something practical on that basis. So the question is, we have good association, we have a great opportunity, especially in the form of Prabhupada's books. Now the question is how much we're going to take advantage of it and get actual jnana chakshush, spiritual vision, rather than just read the books and think, well, that's a good idea. It's how quaint. Krishna is breathing in, the universes are breathing in with, everything comes in. And he breathes out and everything is created. Sounds like a, nice story I can tell my children. Krishna's lifting Govardhan Hill with his little pinky of his left hand. Sure, why not? Nice idea. So the question is, how much we're at, and those things of course are beyond our perception, and something within our conception but beyond our perception. But what about the world around us that we see now? We actually believe everything is flowing from Krishna, everything is controlled by Krishna, and it's all under Krishna's plan, either to chastise the conditioned souls or to give the souls engaged in devotional service intelligence so they can make progress in spiritual life. How much do we see that in our world around us, in our practically everyday activities, seeing with knowledge? And if we don't see with knowledge, no matter how much we may proclaim ourselves to be devotees, we're still like children, bewildered by the illusory energy, just playing around with our little gadgets too here, thinking that we're making progress, when actually we don't know where progress actually is. Just like Dhritarashtra thought he was making progress if he can kill the Pandavas, but actually he was making progress to hell. Until his brother came and gave him some knowledge, by which he was able to work on, and therefore at least get liberation from the material concept of life, the Bali concept of life. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions? Khala? Do we have a microphone or anything?
It's enough catching from your microphone. Small.
Oh, really? Okay. Okay.
My question is, how is the Tarashtra attained, as far as I could understand, liberation, but actually he was guilty for, apparently he was guilty for the whole chaos in society.
Yeah, because that's the mercy of Krishna through his representatives like Vidura. Because apparently we think we're the doers, and therefore we take credit for even our sinful activities, or we give other credit for their sinful activities, as if they're all they're responsible for everything that goes on, not realizing that everything is going on perfectly under Krishna's direction. That even the demons, the asuras, they're simply instruments for Krishna to give their sinful reactions to the people according to what they deserve. When people are sinful, then someone has to be the instrument to give them the reactions. So that's usually some leader or leaders get the credit for giving the reactions, but actually it's simply the material nature. They're simply representing the material nature. At the same time, one could become Krishna conscious in a moment, or not after millions of years. It's simply a question of understanding and accepting the facts. So we think all these people are demons and we're divine. How could they actually become divine so quickly? We don't realize that actually we're also in the same position to a certain extent. We're trying to become devotees, but it's not that everything we do is divine, or that somehow or another all our past activities were all divine, and therefore we deserve to be in this position, because we're so nice and such great devotees. But it's amazing we're here also, by the mercy of the devotees like Prabhupada, who we heard, and to whatever extent possible we're following. So Dhritarashtra was certainly sinful, but he also believes in Krishna. So therefore he wasn't completely a rascal. When Akrura came and told him you should give up your partiality towards your son, so Dhritarashtra said, yes, I know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's come to chastise the miscreants, and I know I'm being partial to my sons, but I can't give it up due to family affection. But I know eventually, Krishna is going to take care of that, and he's going to get rid of all my material attachments. And at that time, I'll be able to surrender to him to some extent. So he wasn't a complete rascal. And therefore, when he had the good fortune of having Vidura preach him, he took it seriously and did what was necessary to get at least liberation from the bodily concept of life. Although it said he couldn't become a Narottama, he only became a Dhira. He could only get free from the bodily concept of life, but he couldn't become a devotee in that lifetime because of his offenses against the Pandavas. Is that all right? Anything else? Okay.
Before a couple of days, one devotee from Yasasan gave a lecture and explained the position of Putra, son, who is very responsible, like a devotee, that bring some progress or spiritual world, whatever, their parents and their families, something like this. And one Mataji asked, what happened with ladies? They also can do this when they are devoted, all their family also have progress. I said nicely in English. Yeah.
That the son is supposed to deliver the father,
Yes.
Putra. Can the ladies do that?
Yeah, this is question. If they are good devotee.
Yeah, well, that's Devarshi Bhutatmarin Petrinam Ekinkara Nanarinim Trirajan Sarvatmara Yaksharnam Sharanyam Kato Mukundam Parityakartam. that if one becomes a devotee, then automatically everyone else is satisfied, including the pitris. So if a lady actually becomes a really sincere devotee, and fixes her mind upon Krishna, then, sure. Someone like Kunti Devi certainly was on that level, or Janavi Devi Dasi, or others. They delivered not only their relatives, but they delivered others too. That's why we read her instructions. It's even in the Bhagavatam. My instructions are not in the Bhagavatam. Hers are. Anything else? Yes.
Why is it that the Lord chooses to use all this technology in His service if it's a product of a misguided civilization?
No, everything's a product of Krishna. But it's just misused, that's all. He created it. He had them create it so He can use it in His service. Actually, He creates things to be used in His service. But they just misuse it, that's all. You can use a knife to butter bread, or to perform surgery, or you can use it to cut someone's throat. It's up to the individual how to use it. The knife is not good or bad, it's just how you use it is it's good or bad.
We get accused, I personally get accused a lot of times that I use all this technology that would not have been possible if we remained at the...
Technology is useless. We would have remained as they were in the Veda culture, then there would be no need for all this technology. People would be pious. Now we have to use the technology to encourage people to become pious, so they can give up the technology and just go back to being pious again. Technology has simply created problems, but we're trying to use it to get rid of the problems, and eventually get rid of the technology. Because it's polluting the air, it's polluting the water, it's polluting the food, it's polluting people's minds. What is the value of the technology? So if we can utilize it to purify the air, to purify the food, purify people's minds, then we won't need it anymore. Because there's technology in the higher planets, but we find the so-called unidentified flying objects, you don't find any vapor trail behind them. They don't pollute the atmosphere. And that's the lower technology. Brahma rides around in a swan. There's no emissions. But if it's a divine swan, so the emissions are also divine. There's no factory to build the swan. It's not necessary. Anything else? Yes.
In material knowledge, many people speak with respect of developing a good character. What would you say from a spiritual perspective? What would this mean, a good character?
Good character means to become a pure devotee of Krishna. It's yasti bhaktir bhagavata kinchana savarganas tatra samasute sara aravaktasya gato mahagunan manorate nasati davato vahi. If one becomes a devotee, then he gets all the good qualities of the demigods. And if one is not a devotee, then although he may apparently exhibit what's considered to be good qualities, but he's hovering on the mental platform, and eventually he'll manifest his real desires. Just like a bird, like a vulture, can go very high in the sky, and everyone's thinking that the vulture is very high. But actually his business is to look on the ground to find a dead body, to eat it. So though it goes high in the sky, but its business is quite low. So people exhibit good qualities, but without becoming a devotee of Krishna, their objective is simply the same thing as everyone else. Eating, sleeping, mating, defending. And eventually they'll exhibit it. Anything else? Pala Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande.